3 years of war with Russia and Ukraine continues its push for NATO membership. This time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he is ready to step down if it meant Kiev would be admitted to the military alliance. He has been calling for Ukraine to be given NATO membership as part of any deal to end the war. But the US-led alliance has been reluctant to commit now more than ever.
Якщо мир для України, якщо вам дуже потрібно, щоб я залишив свій пост, я готовий. Друга історія, можу поміняти це на НАТО. Якщо є такі умови, одразу.
All right, Zelensky and US President Donald Trump have engaged in a war of words. That is, since American and Russian officials met last week in Saudi Arabia for their first high-level talks in 3 years. After the talks, Trump repeated Russia's narrative that Ukraine started the war, prompting reaction from Zelensky, who said that Trump was living in a disinformation space governed by Moscow. Trump did not let go of that comment and called Zelensky a dictator without election. Reacting to the comment, the Ukrainian president said he was not offended because he will definitely never be a dictator, and went on to call himself a legitimately elected president.
Щоб довго про це не говорити. Я фокусуюсь на безпеці України сьогодні, а не за 20 років.
Zelensky called for Trump to meet him before any summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin, while expressing his desire to see his US counterpart as more than a mediator between Ukraine and Russia. When asked about Ukraine giving US access to its critical mineral deposits, Zelensky said that the officials of both the countries are in touch and there has been progress on the deal. Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said they expected an agreement would be signed this week. Zelensky said if the minerals deal is signed, US troop deployment in Ukraine would be a logical step as a security guarantee. He also refused to acknowledge that Ukraine owed Washington $500 billion, a figure often cited by Trump as the total wartime aid provided by the US to Kiev. A support tracker for Germany's Scale Institute for the World Economy shows the US has so far committed $114 billion in total support to Ukraine. Europe continues its push to strengthen Ukraine, with leaders of France and UK heading to US to convince Trump not to abandon Kyiv in pursuit of a peace deal. This as Russia and US teams plan to meet again this week to discuss improving ties after the war in Ukraine pushed their ties to the worst level since the Cold War. European leaders will hold a special summit on the 6th of March to discuss Ukraine and European defense. As Russia's offensive continues, on Sunday, Ukraine's Air Force Command spokesperson said record 267 Russian drones were launched in a single coordinated attack on the country. Ukrainian officials said 13 regions were targeted, and while many of the drones were repelled, those that were not caused destruction to infrastructure, and at least 3 casualties were reported in Ukraine. Meanwhile, thousands rallied in support of Ukraine on the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, which began on 24th of February 2022. The UNGA is set to vote on a text resolution drafted by Ukraine and the EU, and that is on the war, the Russia-Ukraine war, which says it is urgent to end the war this year and clearly repeats the Assembly's previous demands: an immediate cessation of hostilities against Ukraine and an immediate withdrawal of Russian troops. Reuters reported that the US has declined to co-sponsor the text and proposed its own resolution for a General Assembly vote, which calls for a swift end to the war but makes no reference to its territorial integrity. Later on Friday, the US also gave the same draft resolution to the UN Security Council and is now pushing for the UNSC to vote before the General Assembly meets. Maybe because the General Assembly, representing all members, has clearly and overwhelmingly supported Ukrainian sovereignty, while the 15-member Security Council has been paralyzed by Russia's veto power. Well, our correspondent Anas Malik is on the ground in Ukraine, closely tracking all the developments around the country's ongoing war with Russia. He has sent us this report. Take a look.
We are in Solvyansk region of Donbass, and what you see behind me is destruction. This has been caused by the Russian firing and the Russian shelling. The nearest front line from here is about 23 kilometers in the southeast, and the Russian advancement continues to be pushed back by the Ukrainian forces, which continues to face a scarcity of resources, particularly when it comes to arms and ammunition. Anas Malik in Solvyansk, in Donbass's Ukraine, for WION World is One.